What radio? The music you want.
With your host, Keys Dan.
RadioWhat.com.
What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in a living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability, get a free price quote, and maybe you can have me at your next event. Yes, we're going to party. After this is all over, we're going to party. That's what it is. We have a good time. I like to spend my time partying with people at the best times in their lives, like weddings and birthday parties, video dance parties, karaoke jams. Yes, I have fun with the people. Today on the program, speaking of having fun with the people, I'm going to have fun today talking to Trish Dequeant. I hope I pronounced that properly. I'm sure I'll butcher it up sometime or another throughout the podcast. This week's shows. Yes, this is the spot where I usually put in the shows that I'm doing this week, the public shows and the private shows. But due to the novel COVID-19 coronavirus, I am not doing any shows out in the public or even in the private. So you'll get to hear lots and lots of podcasts. Yes. So let's do this. Let's talk to Trish Dequeant. Calling Trish Dequeant now.
Hello?
Hello, Trish Dequeant, please.
Oh, that would be me, but you mispronounced my last name like I did the first 2 years before I met him or got married.
Of course I did. Of course I did. Go ahead. Pronounce your name and give the people a little idea of who you are. Obviously, it's Keys Dan with the What Makes You Famous podcast. Let them know who you are.
Well, a pleasure to be able to finally speak with you. My name is Patricia Dequeant, and it was like a prerequisite the first 2 years before I married my husband to learn how to say it. We're from Louisiana. He's from southern Louisiana.
All right. So let's see. I guess I should say et toi. No, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that at all.
No, it's more like Asha, baby.
No.
Right?
No, wrong. Very wrong. From what I understand, the people, and I know I'm doing a Justin Wilson, no good impression. And from what I understand, the people of Louisiana, especially in the French Quarter, do not like that man because I think he's from Mississippi. I don't even think he's from Louisiana, but that's a whole nother story. I like Louisiana. I have friends in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So, all right, let's start there. Where exactly are you from, Patricia? Wait, pronounce that last name one more time.
Dequeant.
Dequeant. Okay, got it.
I was born and raised in Baton Rouge. My husband is from Rain, over closer to Lafayette, and so he's actually the official Cajun in the family. I'm more of a mixed breed mutt type because Baton Rouge, you can get people from all over. We do have LSU and Southern University, and so you get to have that nice Cuisinart of different people, which is great because I just love meeting all kinds of different people. If I only knew one type of people, I would be quite bored. Yeah,
I'm quite familiar with Baton Rouge. I have a friend that's in the Spanish department there at LSU. And yes, when you're at a big college school, and that is a huge college school, it's got a big draw for people from all over the planet. You're going to meet people in a college town that have different ideas. And I like that. I like that melting pot. I mean, what did you get growing up there? Did you get a feeling of worldwide, different ideas from people all over the world? I mean, what was your views growing up there?
Actually, growing up there, I really didn't get to appreciate everything about Louisiana until I was older. I had kind of an unconventional childhood. I think you're aware that I work at a shelter, and I am a CASA advocate. So I didn't get to experience Louisiana to the fullest when I was a child because my childhood was one of abuse. But as I got older, when I met my husband, It was wonderful. They say if you want to go to a foreign country on a cheap dime, you go to Louisiana, and that is very true. But if you want to have, wide hips and a good lunch, you go down to, New Orleans or Lafayette or, that area. And Baton Rouge has some great offerings, the music, the vibes and everything. Unfortunately, I didn't get to experience that when I was younger. And so I get to visit it every year. And it is totally awesome. Completely love it every trip we can get.
Okay. I've seen The Water Boy, and, I'm thinking of your husband's small town vibe.
Uh-huh.
How close in documentary form is The Water Boy?
I haven't seen that movie. I actually haven't. I haven't seen a lot of movies. When I think of Louisiana, the closest I can get is, have you ever seen Steel Magnolias? That was filmed in Natchitoches.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
And the Big Easy. I think that's another favorite of mine from the Big Easy. I guess that's another name for New Orleans, the touristy part of Louisiana.
Yes. And I know people joke and they say, "Oh, it's Nolans," but I promise you, the whole time I lived down there, I don't think I ever heard anybody actually call it that. But do whatever feels right for you, I guess.
Well, I guess walking down Bourbon Street, you'll see all the T-shirts and bumper stickers that say Nolans. That they're really playing on that vibe and capitalizing on it as well. All right.
Yes.
So, but you grew up in Baton Rouge. I mean, yeah, maybe I know a little bit about your backstory and very little, really. I don't research these things because I want the conversation to be natural and flowing and very organic. But you alluded to your childhood being not one of the norm. I mean, as far as you want to expound and let people know about it, please, Trish, let the people know.
I came from a very dysfunctional family, and my mom was older when she had me. She was 42, and I think my dad was 38. And so my childhood is remembering Rawhide and Andy Griffith and like those older shows. Everybody's like, I used to shell peas with my grandma. I never met my grandma, and my mother was old enough to be my grandma. Lord have mercy, they made the mistake of calling her my grandmother when I was in elementary school. I never heard the end of that, but that was kind of my childhood. And to put it lightly, my parents were the product of generational abuse. I don't know how many of your listeners have heard of that before, but my dad's parents were abusive towards him, and they experienced abuse in their past. And then that was also on my mom's side as well. I had half brothers and things that I've not met them. But, and I really don't know a whole lot, though I've tried to learn it and figure it out of who my family is. But unfortunately, that's kind of what it was, is generational abuse. My dad had served in the Vietnam War, and my mom was raised, her dad was a musician that played in bars, and so she was kind of raised there, in and out. And so I had my experiences when I was younger, and then as I became an adult, it wasn't a therapist or anything that helped me. It was actually, this is going to sound crazy, but it was like internet memes. And if anyone's ever heard of Christopher Titus, the comedian, when he had his show back then, he was, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone in this. And then dark humor became my best friend. But, the whole, you can break the cycle thing just became very important to me. And so now, in present time, my husband and I, we have a son who has mild special needs, but I can honestly say that he doesn't know the pain that I've experienced, and he seems confused when he hears even minor things of what his grandparents were like on my side. So I'm very proud of that, and then tried to use what I experienced when I was younger as a means to try and help, people nowadays. I work at a domestic violence shelter, and I try to help the individuals that are needing help and come to visit there or call the crisis line. And then I'm also a CASA to try and help children who might be in need.
Well, that's a broad overview. That if you look at the Wikipedia page on Trish, I'm gonna keep mispronouncing your last name, Dequeant.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
If you look at the overview, which is the top paragraph, that what you just said in a nutshell is the overview. But let's dig a little deeper. I mean, what kind of abuse? How did the abuse growing up present itself? abuse can be such a broad word. I don't even know what you went through. If you want to go deeper into that, if not, hey, we'll gloss over it and continue forward. But what kind of abuse?
Well, I'll tell you some of it, but I'll be careful of it because I don't want because it can be triggering for some individuals. But my dad had a raging addiction to porn. And so there were times when Rent-A-Center was like his favorite place. He'd get a computer and then he'd get some virus because he looked at some things he shouldn't have been looking at. Obsessively. And then I was I was a preteen, and then my mother wouldn't want to go in to deal with this. And so I was constantly bringing the computer back to Rent-A-Center so they could fix it. And then they would send it back to him. He was very reclusive. He didn't allow anyone to come over to the home. We didn't know extended relatives. When we had holidays, it was literally just myself, my brother, and my parents. He was trying to find meaning in things and trying to, I don't know how to put this. And I don't know a whole lot about him, which is a shame because I lived with him, both of my parents for 17 years, but that's how much they kind of withheld. I know he was a private investigator once upon a time, and when he was younger, but he became an ordained minister over the internet. It's like he wanted to have certificates of anything he could get without having to actually socialize with people to kind of build up his, self-esteem or self-worth, because he was, insulted quite a bit and whatnot when he was a child, but he wasn't offered opportunities either. So that's kind of how he was. And then he also has a vision deficit. He has something called dominant optic atrophy, which should have, from what I understand, gone to my brother, but I ended up getting it. And so there is that possibility that one day I'll become stat blind, but I'm not there yet. But so he needed help. And part of the abuse was he couldn't see to type on a keyboard. And so he would have me assist him to look things up on the internet that when you're a 12-year-old girl, you shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be asked to do. And he was very violent. He would destroy things. He would hit things. He used pot holders to cover holes in the wall. When I was young, my mother had experienced this sort of abuse when she was a child because her father was very much the same. And so this was normal for her. So she ended up with him. And so it's part of that whole toxic cycle. But he was very violent. He was very degrading towards women. My mom, probably had something like battered women syndrome, and I think that probably is a real thing. I don't know if it's a proper term, but she was very much depressed and down, a lot of times. And she was the one that was actually the breadwinner. But his favorite phrase was, if I didn't leave a mark on you, then I didn't do anything wrong. And so, there was all of that. But so it came to, when I was 14, I attempted suicide. I ended up going to the same hospital that I was born at, which no longer exists. It was Earl K. Long, and it was one of those. It was if you had low income kind of hospitals down in Baton Rouge, and it's been torn down since. But they didn't come and see me. They didn't come and visit me. And then I ended up going back home because they couldn't find a bed available for a teenage female at a mental health facility to try and help me out. So I went back home, and it kind of continued because I had quote unquote shamed the family. And my dad was very much a misogynist. He didn't value women. I was removed from school, and then I wasn't able to get my GED. I was literally at home every day, enduring whatever mood he was in, until I was 17. And I actually met my husband by a wrong phone number. It's been very much an adventure since I was born, but I'm in a good place now. So thank God for that,
Well, you seem well adjusted, and you look cute in your glasses, by the way. I know your eyesight is going down for genetics, I suppose.
Yeah.
But okay, so your mom and dad both came from problems, very similar problems, but they came together. Hopefully they helped each other out a little bit, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like it was mutually destructive.
It very much was. It was very explosive. And, unfortunately, children will be put in a position sometimes where they play the hero. So if if there was an argument or if there was something going on in the home and then we randomly got a knock at the door, then, you played like everything was fine and everything was okay. And you learn that from when you're young, unfortunately. It's just kind of programmed into you of how you're supposed to handle this, because it's not like I went door to door and asked for surveys from other kids that had different experiences with good families. This was my normal, kind of thing. But yeah, it was generational, and so my son doesn't know it now. So I'm hoping future generations, will do much better without the challenges and, having to make up for things that have happened. It'll be much easier, but, I'm kind of happy to be where I am to where I can help other people and make those adjustments,
Oh, you're doing great. Yeah. Breaking the cycle. That's your lease in life right now. Your lot is to try to stop what happened to you from happening to other people. Now, were there any brothers and sisters in your life?
Yes. You were asking about abuse. I had one brother. Well, let's backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
When I was younger, I had two brothers. One was 8 years older than me, and then the other one was 6 years older than me. When I was 4 years old, my brother, his name was Marshall. He was 12. He had Duchenne muscular dystrophy, but back in 1980, whichever year you want to pick, we didn't know as much then as we do now about that disease. And so he went to a special needs camp so he could go fishing and have some, adventures and stuff. And really, I think my parents sent him because they needed a little bit of a breathing time, a little bit of a reprieve, because it was very stressful to care for a special needs kid like that. He went there, and unfortunately, he got pneumonia, ended up in the hospital, came back early, and he passed away. So this is where, all of this dysfunction continues. Now, I have the other brother who is 6 years older than me, and we moved from one home to another because he had a hard time getting over, losing Marshall, and his name is Jason. Well, when we moved, my dad would watch porn on the living room TV. Our mother would work at night as a cashier at an Exxon station. And so my brother ended up becoming an abuser towards me. With all of that exposure, you become what you see when you're a child. And that's why it's important to remember that you have little ears around you and things like that. And the kids see everything. But if you're the product of abuse and you don't want to change it, if you don't see a need for change, or, sometimes I get frustrated with the fact that they didn't get help from what they had suffered with. But, there's also, the whole, how committed were they to change anything? So that continued, that generational abuse.
Okay. So your brother, you were dealing with your brother, your older brother. And
yes, he became sexually abusive.
To get a timeline on this, I mean, when did your older brother pass away?
Well, I had the two brothers. He passed away when I was 4 and he was 12. And then the abuse with my other brother, who is 6 years older than me. That started from the time I was 5 till I was 11.
So how long ago was that? I don't even know how old you are.
Oh gosh, I'm 36, and I have no shame in saying that. I don't know. I didn't do a timeline. I think it stopped somewhere around. I'm from Louisiana. We go on timelines of hurricanes. I think it stopped somewhere around when Hurricane Andrew came through. Not long after
1992. I remember that.
Right. There you go.
I was working for the fire department in Key Largo in the Florida Keys, so I remember Andrew very well. And okay, so all right, now we got an idea of when and where and how, a little bit about how you grew up, family wise. I mean, were there any good times? Were there any happy times? Did you go? What did you do in school? How did they treat you there? I mean, little Trish, I hope it wasn't all bad.
It kind of, there are some highlights, but it was kind of bad because I went to school, of course, but then I was bullied because I wasn't the cool kid. I wasn't given I was wearing my mom's clothes. My parents didn't buy me clothes that actually fit appropriately when I was young. They bought my brother bomber jackets and high-end shoes and things like that. But the things that I remember when I was younger, it's odd things that you would probably think is crazy. And this, maybe nobody wants to hear this, but I was raised in a trailer, and I always joke that, we had so many roaches. You can't kill the roaches; they're holding up the walls. But but I had nail polish, and so I put nail polish on the back of a roach's back, and I'd be like, "Oh, he showed up again." And yes, I have an odd sense of humor, but I think it's okay to have an odd sense of humor and see the oddities and things in order. It's a really good coping mechanism. It didn't hurt anyone, but there was that. And then I used to love catching lizards, and I would make like a little tiny leash, with a piece of yarn, and I'd, walk them across a little picnic table and then let them go again. I used to love crickets and grasshoppers, and one of my friends told me if you dig a hole, deep enough, you can see China. I wouldn't do that now, mind you. This is a bad year. But there's, I was digging holes in the backyard and stuff. I was very much an outdoorsy, little girl, very tomboyish. And then, I did have a few friends that that I hung out with. And then, my dad, he would barbecue, and things like that. There's some good memories in there. They're hard to find at times, but yeah, there's a few things there.
Okay, Trish, now I can relate a little bit to you. I mean, I feel so bad that you were abused as a child, and I know that's a big part of your psyche and about of who you are right now. But playing outside, that's something kids don't do these days. And call me a 51-year-old fart, but that's what I am right now. These kids today, I grew up near the Everglades. I went outside, I played, grabbed snakes, ran away from crocodiles and alligator. I guess it's alligators. Shot BB guns at various cans and trees. Yeah. And sometimes my friends, we play one pump BB gun wars outside. But go out, ride your bikes, play outside. I see a lot of these the children on their devices. But you had a good upbringing, a good outside. Outside of the home, you found things to do. These are not weird things. Going and digging a hole and finding bugs and maybe putting a little nail polish on them so you can see, hey, I saw that bug before. Yes.
And I named it.
Yes, of course. And living in a trailer is not a bad thing. I've grown up. I've had trailers. I've had regular houses. It has people demean it, but there are some cool trailers. I mean, I'm thinking that your trailer wasn't the cleanest one, but certainly, hey, it was a place to grow up, right?
It was a good place to grow up and everything as far as structure goes. But it's that whole, I have an odd sense of humor. Like, okay, we're safe as long as nobody has a really good can opener. Like they can't get in. It's good,
Okay, I didn't. That joke was flying over my head, and then you slapped it back. When you explained a little bit about the who couldn't get in. All right, I get it. Yeah. My grandma's in a trailer. She's in a trailer in Key Largo. Right on the Gulf of Mexico. So living in a trailer, it could be location as well. You're in a trailer in Baton Rouge. That's a pretty cool place to grow up. I mean, as far as I could see, this is somebody here in Central Arkansas, in Conway, Arkansas. Now, just so people know, we both live in close proximity, but because of the novel COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, we chose not to meet face to face, and things have been running ragged for you. But I digress. Let's back up. Find out. Okay, after you get out of high school and quit your hole digging and bug finding, you spent 17 years in this house, and what were you wanting to be when you broke out of this situation?
When I was a kid, I used to look at brochures and things for LSU. I wanted to go into mass communications because I really wanted to be a writer, or I wanted to go and be a journalist, or I wanted to be on television and help with news stories and things of that nature. But like I mentioned, I was pulled out of school when I was 14. I still don't understand how, those in Louisiana didn't figure out, okay, this child isn't in school, but nonetheless, that's what I kind of had in my head that I was going to end up becoming. And then, like I said, I'd met my husband by a wrong phone number. My parents didn't know that I was using the phone. I was actually trying to work for Baker News at the time, which is in Baker, Louisiana. I thought, well, somehow maybe I can snail mail articles, because I'd stolen the Advocate newspaper from my mom one morning, and I was like, well, maybe I can work for them, and try to get in touch with them. Well, I was in touch with Michael Williams, and he had relocated for work, and I was trying to reach him. And someone told me, okay, try this number. And I kept trying to call the number, and every time I called, it said, hey, this is Mike, leave a message. Well, I was 14. I was full of, I'm trying to keep it clean here, but salt and vinegar, I guess.
Yes.
I had some really colorful language back then. And when he eventually answered, he wasn't Michael Wilson or Williams, because I'm still confused on that name there, but he said that he was in between classes and trying to take a nap. And he was nice. He said, well, what do you want? And I proceeded to, like a well-trained sailor, chew him out and use all kinds of colorful language and hung up on him. Well, I called a friend. She's like, you don't want to leave that kind of karma in the world. I called back, apologized to him. And so we only spoke on the phone, but we spoke on the phone for like 3 months. And then he eventually came over and met my parents and things. Our dates were actually, riding the city bus and go walking around the mall or going and seeing a movie, because he was actually a student over at LSU at the time. And here I am. I had just turned 15. But, I was wanting to go to LSU, and he was a terrific influence on me. We were engaged for 2 years. We got married when I was 17, and I was of the mind of I wanted to, be into mass communications when I was younger. But again, the abuse, and the fact that my dad didn't value women, he put down all of that and said, basically that's not going to happen for you. Women are only good for one thing. So I ended up working up at McDonald's in the playroom and cleaning and stuff. And that lasted all of a week after we got married. But as time went on, I ended up, with little jobs here and there. I worked as a telemarketer in Miami, Florida, actually, at Reader's Service Center, selling magazines by phone, because we had to live out there at one point for his, when he was still trying to get his PhD. I've had a number of different jobs. I've worked for Home Instead. I've worked for CareLink, CHDC. And because in my heart, it changed from I want to be in mass communications to I want to help people, but I don't know in what capacity I'm wanting to help people. So here I am just playing with this idea. And then I ended up, I'd had people tell me over time, you really should become a gal. I'm like, what's a gal? In other states, it's a guardian ad litem, and they help children who are going through court over, after they've suffered a bad, abusive, neglectful past, and now they're in the foster system. In Arkansas, they call that CASA, so it's a court-appointed special advocate. So I never, when I was a child, I wasn't like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a domestic violence advocate. That never occurred to me. But, that's what I've become, and that's what I do. And honestly, I wouldn't want to do anything else. There's nothing else that appeals to me. I like working, I'm working with both ends of the spectrum. You've got, individuals that, need help because they're in an abusive partnership or relationship, and they may have kids, and so I'm trying to help those individuals. But then you also have CASA, where you have the children who have their perspective on the fact that their parents were, they witnessed the abuse or they were being abused. And so, beyond, being a journalist, nothing else really occurred to me. I was never like, oh, I'd love to be a firefighter or I want to be a nurse. I just kind of ended up here, and I'm happy with it.
Trish, I love your storytelling. That is fantastic. And you meandered through. You kind of glossed upon your love story with Michael, and your different Joe jobs, working for McDonald's, the fine people of McDonald's who are one of the are some of the few that are still open and able to give. But working in the playground. Okay, is it as disgusting as I think it is?
It was. There were some children that had some potty issues in the indoor, play tube, and they're like, "Can you go up there and clean that?" And oh my gosh, that'll tell you right there why I was only there for a week. And it was in a college town. It was in Starkville, Mississippi, and so you had students that had kiddos, or you had families that had children. They'd come in, and I don't know what it was about back then. It was in the early 2000s. spoons, but, oh, hey, let's just go ahead and squirt ketchup on the table and we can draw in it. And then it would dry and I'd have to go squirt. I was just like, okay, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I don't want to be this. I couldn't handle it. It was, I wasn't taught discipline when I was a kid. I wasn't taught good work ethic when I was a kid or anything. I didn't get to be a babysitter or anything. And, so I had a hard time with that. And I was falling apart and crying and, and whatnot. And, so I didn't stay there for long, but, I've had a very interesting, combination of different jobs that I've done. So.
Hey, I encourage every young person that is trying to get out into the workforce to at least work for a little while in fast food. I did KFC myself, and I did that for about a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And I had a great time working there. But yeah, working in fast food is interesting. The service industry, for that matter, dealing with people. And you learn a lot about yourself and how much you can handle working with people. Here I was 16 or 17 working in the drive-thru, and I think I had what can only be described as the panic attack in the drive-thru. I said, I got to get out of this thing, get out of this box. But working in the ball pit, I could imagine the same thing.
Well, it was like I worked the drive-through window. I was there only, I'd have to ask my husband because he actually kept track of it better than I did. I'm like, I didn't count the days. I just know that I'm not there anymore. But I think it was like 14 days or something. And I remember working the drive-through, and I was like 17, and the woman had ordered food. She tried to pay me with her dog. Like, I looked over, I was going to take her money, and I'm like, there's a dog looking at me, and I'm like, okay. And so this is my first experience with, there are individuals that have some different mental, ways of functioning. So, I don't know if maybe she had, it was a very much older individual. And so, it made sense to her, didn't make sense to me, but, it was very interesting. And that is a very, to work in the fast food industry, I don't think people, express their appreciation enough because it's not easy at all, but it is, it is kind of a, how they put it. It's, when people say, well, I've gone to the school of life or something like that, it really is a good place to work, to go and learn quite a bit. And I did have a manager that tried to work with me, but, my childhood didn't prepare me for adulthood, kind of thing. That was on my end, not on the industry's end,
Has nothing to do with them. But then you made your way to Miami, Florida, and you never said hello. I was probably working on the radio back then. If it was anywhere in the 90s or even the early 2000s, I was probably in your ears while you were going to and from work.
Possibly, I guess. I'm trying to remember. I think it was like 2003, 2002, 2003. Where were you? Were you out that way then?
I was at Exito 105.5. Your bilingual station. It was 2 English and 2 Spanish. 105.5.
Yeah. I probably totally missed you. I felt like a fish out of water because there's actually a lot of individuals down there that they speak Spanish and whatnot. Because we lived over in some apartments out there in Miami, like across from a Target. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. And then we lived on Calle Ocho.
Yeah, I'm familiar with apartments. I'm familiar with the Target, and I'm familiar with Calle Ocho. Now, Calle Ocho, for those that don't know, that's the Baton Rouge of Miami. That's the Strip, the 8th Street, and a lot of Cuban restaurants. In fact, there's a big festival every year, Calle Ocho. And I enjoyed my time there for sure. I only just got to Arkansas straight from South Florida in 2009. So, I was there. And you were listening to, well, maybe you weren't. Maybe cruising. I guess that would be very arrogant of me if everyone in the area was listening to 105.5.
Well, I think back then I might have had an addiction to CDs. I don't know. I can't even remember what I was into back then, other than trying to figure out, how to find a restroom if I went to, a place, because I couldn't speak Spanish, and I tried to learn Spanish so hard, and it didn't stick with me. I don't know donde este baños de mas even makes sense. I don't know what I just said, but if you cross your legs and you start vibrating, then they know you need the potty, so they kind of point, go over here, there's the ladies' room. Well, and that's about as far as I got with it.
With that one sentence, you insulted my kosher. You insulted my kosher. No, I'm kidding. You were very good. You would have found the bathroom pretty easily using that statement, even, but my Spanish is terrible, which is why I worked on a bilingual station. I'm half Cuban, half Irish, which usually makes people half upset, one way or the other. But good. Yeah. We laugh, we kid. But your experience in Miami, living in an apartment, and you were doing that because your hubby was getting a PhD in what?
Yes, in organic chemistry. We met and we started out in Starkville, Mississippi, and his professor had gotten a better position and he had transferred. And so for him to continue on to get his PhD, we went to Miami, Florida. So he was going to the University of Miami. And so, oh my gosh, like the memories that come back from then, I would just, and I worked at Reader Service Center. I was doing telemarketing and selling magazines, by phone and whatnot. But a lot of my time was, we had a pet rabbit. And so I would go out there to the university and I'd go sit at one of the tables outside of the little Starbucks. And, my rabbit was scared of heights. And so she'd just sit on the table and we would read magazines and stuff. But I didn't know, I didn't know what a plantain was. And so one day I was, sitting there with the rabbit. I came another day and I was like, oh, there's this little, store here. You can go buy some things. I went and got a little bag of plantains and I didn't know what they were. Well, I tried one. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are hard. I can't. Oh, I was, I'm used to Southern Louisiana. I'm used to, gumbo and, etouffee. Plantains was kind of a new concept for me. And then I learned really quick, you don't give them to the cranes that are going around the waterfront there, because I told my husband, I'm like, I got some plantains and I didn't like them. He's like, well, did you save any? I want to try them. I'm like, well, I kind of fed them to the cranes. He's like, I don't think you're supposed to do that. Well, too late. I mean, they seemed to like them. They came back for another dose, they didn't walk up to me. I was just kind of flicking them, but, I felt like, yay, I'm at the zoo, but they're not behind, I can get to them and just flicking these and having the time of my life. And I'm just hoping they still have, their mascot. Sorry. I know.
Experiencing the wildlife at the University of Miami. All the cranes out there.
Yes.
I went to the University of Miami for lunch. It was good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gorgeous out there. It really is. It was absolutely wonderful. Those are some amazing memories there and whatnot. But, we ended up going to Indiana after that. And we lived in Greencastle. I call it Greendinkle because it's like, it's like a map dot, it's really small. And I worked at Fashion Bug for, like a year, or whatnot. Bug? Oh, it was one of the stores that was run by Charming Shops. I don't know that it existed anymore. I'm not sure it may. But you have Lane Bryant and then you had Fashion Bug, and they're both under the same umbrella. Fashion Bug would sell, clothing sizes for all, women, whereas Lane Bryant kind of focused on, plus size individuals.
Yeah, my mom used to call it Lane Giant. Sorry.
Lane Giant. Oh, no, it's fine. She can call that whatever she wants. I prefer Torrid. It's 2020. It took me a couple of years to discover Torrid, but once you go Torrid, you can't go back. That's just my opinion. Nobody get mad at me or anything, but Lane Bryant just wasn't my style. I like the t-shirts at Torrid.
So. This portion of the podcast brought to you by Torrid. That's a little shopping tip for the gals out there. Fantastic. Hey, you never know what you're going to get.
Coupons.
What? Say it again?
I was like, throw me some reward coupons, Torrid.
Oh, yeah. Pass them on.
Right.
All right. Well, Trish, we're learning more about you. Your time in Miami. You're making me homesick a little bit. My mom and grandma are still in Key Largo saying, come home, son. I say that, but they're just about to move to Tennessee. They're building a little log cabin out there. And I think mom and grandma and stepdad are going to be spending the rest of their life there in Tennessee. So their world will turn from blue, the blue of the ocean, to green, just like mine did. I
don't know why you would want to move. I thought that, Florida was kind of where you went when you were done with, serving the world. Go out there, go to the beach, go enjoy your time. I don't know. I imagine Tennessee has its perks. I've not heard of anybody wanting to leave Florida.
Right. Once you get to a certain age, people retire in Florida. That's always been the norm, it's the biggest wine it's the favorite wine of New Yorkers. I want to go to Florida.
Right. I remember it raining like 2 days when we were down there. There was like never any rain. It was always warm and everything. And it didn't rain very often, you know. Maybe I'm a weirdo, but around Christmas, I kicked the AC to 54. It needed to feel normal to me, but it was nice to look out the windows.
Well, that was my tradition every Christmas. Go to the beach.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm from Louisiana. We didn't have snow, but it was cold enough to kill a leaf. Down there you have the pretty palm trees, and they're great at staying green year round.
Absolutely. So. Oh man, and we decorate, we celebrate.
Yeah.
All right. So you got out of Miami, and then you went where? I mean, by this time you got married pretty young, and you traveled around. You had a husband to go with. That's fantastic. Yeah. So where did you go from Miami again? Oh, to Indiana, and then Indiana you were doing the clothing, the retail, and then from Indiana, where'd you go?
Well, we were in Greencastle, and then we had moved to West Lafayette, Indiana, for a period of time because he was working and doing school and whatnot, and it was wonderful there. I loved the change in the seasons and all of the colors, and my birthday's in November. That's the first time I'd ever seen snow that early on, but from there we ended up moving down here to Conway. And we've been here for the last 12 years.
What brought you to Conway? Yeah.
His work. His work. He worked at Hendrix for I think it was 6 years.
Hendrix College.
Yes, Hendrix College, and it was absolutely wonderful there. The staff was wonderful, faculty, and they do amazing things and go above and beyond to help the students. I loved walking across the campus in the fall, and we would go walk around, and I joke, I'm like, let's go count the squirrels, because there were squirrels everywhere. And then they had the pecan, crushed pecan field thing there. It was wonderful. And but they didn't have a permanent position available for him. And so now he is an instructor out at UACCM, which is wonderful. And we love it there too. Unfortunately, like everywhere else, they've had to close down the school. And so he's now working on doing everything by recording it and then putting it online for the students, web classes and doing labs and stuff and whatnot. But it's all been a great experience. We were just like, we love Arkansas. We're not leaving, so he just kind of looked for another position that was nearby. We had our son here, so.
Well, for the people listening, UACCM is the community college in Morrilton. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
And that's a pretty good job up there?
Yeah, it is. And it works out really well, because I'll go and do what I need to do during the day if I'm working or whatnot. And then he's got time, in between classes here and there. So I'll go visit with him and hang out in his office. It really, we had a really good routine going until, the whole COVID crisis thing kind of threw everything up in the air. But I love it out there. Morrilton it's nice to go to Morrilton to, get out of Conway for a bit here and there, just because it's a little bit slower, a little bit calmer, but it still has some pretty awesome people, Oh,
I agree. And there's only really two places that I remember living, two regions. I've lived in South Florida and I've lived in Central Arkansas. I've been all over a lot of this great country of ours, but I like it. I like it too. I mean, to give it up to Conway and Arkansas tourism, come on out. Yeah. There's plenty to see. and
constantly building more stuff. Oh my gosh, we've lived here for 12 years, and I don't know if I could list on one hand everything that they've added. And we've got new shops and new restaurants and new roundabouts. I can't count roundabouts anymore. I mean, how high do the numbers go? But it's a city of colleges and roundabouts. As long as it hasn't snowed and iced over, and they don't become skating rinks, the roundabouts are great. They help with traffic.
Well, one of the things that brought me here from Miami, and that convinced me, was Conway Core. And the way that the city is planned out and the growth. And the sign has said 50,000 people. I'm sure there's more. The 2020 census will be done at some point.
Oh yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you come to Conway? I mean, it's the city of colleges, and I should know this after being here for 12 years, but I mean, gosh, we've got, you're going to have to help me here. I know we've got Hendrix, we've got, UCA.
And then there's a Baptist college as well, right?
Yes. Yes. And so we get that nice melting pot here too that I was raised with, in Baton Rouge. And so that's awesome. I've met a number of different people, and not only those that, we help at the shelter or, through CASA, but just in general, just, where we live and seeing, different people just day to day. Everybody's awesome. I just love to see, a variety of lives and experiences. And, it's awesome. I love it. I couldn't live out in the country where I don't see, but, one person every 5 miles, I love being around people and, all walks of life. It's awesome.
Well, I first got here and I lived in the great city of Holland, a population 500 and not too many people. Yes, I'm a city boy myself. I mean, yes, I spent a lot of time in Key Largo, which is kind of a smaller place, but Miami, that was my spot, millions of people. And I know there's not that quite as many people here, but what I do, I mean, with what I do, I need to see people. I need to have people around with the DJ. I need to have people that go to those clubs and listen to the music that I play and come to the karaoke shows. And so, all right. So that kind of brings us to right now, to what you're doing right now. And you've kind of alluded to it. But how did you get your own psyche into an even keel? Was that merely being married to a wonderful man, or was that did you have therapy of any kind, or how did you get to do what you do?
Well, so to go back a little bit, my dad was an ordained minister over the internet, and so of course a lot of my views on God were skewed. When I was younger, I ended up being atheist, and of course, when people tried to push Christianity on me, I had a lot of anger issues. Well, if there's a God, why did he let this happen? Why, did he permit this? That sort of thing. And then there was a little bit of religion. I had to fight to be able to go to Central Baptist Church in Baton Rouge by bus. And I went for about a year, but my parents were also like, you can go to the church, but I don't want to hear anything of it, kind of thing. But I didn't know what to make of it. It was very confusing. And then when I met my husband, he is a very dedicated Roman Catholic individual, and he comes from an amazing family. And he was very certain of his beliefs. And so he kind of helped me with that. When I was growing up, what I thought love was not love. It was dysfunction and manipulation. But he taught me differently over time by who he was and who he is. And then, as I got older, his parents were very much like, I'd like to see you become Catholic if you get married. So there's that stability and not all that confusion, if you have children. And so, I went through the, RCIA program, in Starkville, Mississippi, and I wholeheartedly agreed with what was taught and became Catholic. And then, to be honest, I can't remember what you asked me.
No, just congratulations on being evenly yoked in that respect. I was a Catholic when I was a little boy. Now I'm American. Yeah. You grow. Yeah.
Well, I'm hardcore, about my beliefs and stuff, and I really, and I believe, being Catholic, I really believe in my beliefs, and I don't want to be offending anyone, but I also understand that we all come from different backgrounds. There's no one else gone through exactly what I've gone through, and so they're still on their path trying to figure out where they're going. And, I'm someone that believes if you take a Bible and you smack someone in the head with it, they're not going to embrace it. They're going to fear it. And so it's, we have a song in church, they'll know we are Christian by our love. And so I try to, by my example and who I am, to, to help draw people to, Christ and Jesus. But I try not to use it to punish them or, beat them over the head with it, because, what good would that do? But over time, I think you were asking me how I became a stable, somewhat stable individual. And, so it was through my husband and the church. And then after we got married, in all honesty, I had some really bad anger issues because everything felt foreign. He loves me. He's being kind to me. He's not being a jerk. He is, and it was so foreign because dysfunction and chaos was normalcy. to me. And so to be happy felt odd, and we, argued and fought and I would break plates because I couldn't adjust. And so, he told me, he said, I love you, but, I don't know how to help you. It might be best if you try and get a hold of someone who would understand and, is certified and, has that education to, help you. So I went and I saw a doctor, went and I started with therapy. And that helped. And there's a number of different types of therapists. So for anyone that may be listening, if you have, a therapist and it doesn't feel like it's helping or working out, try someone else, because some therapists just, listen. There's other therapists that do an EMDR therapy, which is very specific. It's, with light, and it helps to help your brain work, both sides of your brain to work together so you can process things, old things. You've got cognitive behavioral therapists. Find what works best for you, because you don't have to stay stagnant where you are, and don't give up on hope of what you've experienced. There's always something else. There's 1,500 different types of chocolate. There's, different types of therapists. Find what works for you. We're all so different. It needs to be catered to. So I went through a number of therapists trying to figure out what worked. And there were times when I swore them off. Oh, this isn't helping. This isn't doing any good. Currently, yes, I do have someone that I go and visit and I speak with, because with the things that I'm involved with helping other people, sometimes I think you just need a safe, confidential environment to be able to vent some of those things and your concerns of how you're able to process things or what your approach should be. Because when you work at a shelter or when you work with CASA, there's a very high confidentiality clause there. So I can't just go home and tell my husband, oh, this happened at the shelter, or this happened with a child with CASA. And so that I go there and that helps me tremendously with that as well. But ultimately, if I throw a promo out there for anything, I don't know if anyone's heard of Celebrate Recovery,
Nope.
But that you've not heard of Celebrate Recovery?
Tell me all about it.
All right. Celebrate Recovery. I can't, you'd have to look it up. I don't know it that deeply, but I don't know who developed it, but it's biblically based, and it's a 12-step kind of program sort of thing. They have meetings. In Conway, I started going to Mosaic Church, and they had Celebrate Recovery there. The reason that I started going there was because I didn't necessarily have an addiction. I'm not someone that has ever done drugs or, needed to drink in order to cope. I went because I didn't know how to handle what happened to me when I was a child, and when I was a teen. And then I tried to fix the relationship with my parents so that my son had both sets of his grandparents, but it didn't work out. So I went to Celebrate Recovery, and they help you with your, hurts and hang-ups and things of that nature, things that you're just struggling to deal with. And they had weekly meetings, and then they had like a little worship session and things. And I wish I had more that I could say about it, because it has been a while since I've been to a meeting, because like I mentioned before, it was hard to be able to even talk to you today because everything's just been very, very busy, very hectic. And so I've not been there in a while, but and it's a 12-step program. So if you take kind of, I guess, what AA would offer, the 12 steps, and it kind of takes it biblically as well, and throws that Christian depth into it. But the most helpful thing that I was taught in there is that God gives everyone free will. It's not that God was inflicting abuse on me or allowing it, but my free will can't be taken from me. And so, my parents' free will couldn't be taken from them. And so God was there. He was present, but they did what they did because they made poor choices, not because I did something that brought it on, that I deserved it, not that God was inflicting something on me, but, and I hate to say it this way, but the way I ended up feeling was, individuals and people will do the best they can with what they have. And unfortunately, my parents, they didn't know better. That was their normal. And because generational abuse had gone so far back, they probably felt, odd if they were happy as well. And so they continued what was their normal. But I went to Celebrate Recovery for a couple of years. You do get a sponsor while you're there. Another individual that's working the program as well, and they help lead you through it, and there's steps, and you do get chips for, your time that you've been committed to it, but and I never, and there's people that have been there for 20 years and things of that nature. I never really got past 2 years, but I think you go for as long as it is to get what it is that your soul kind of needs. And when I came to the realization that, my parents, didn't do this because I, did something to bring it on to me. It wasn't God being ugly to me. They were some pretty warped individuals and just unfortunately, continued the cycle that they were taught when they were young. So,
well, from what I gleaned from that, Trish, is that you as an individual couldn't handle, or you had one understanding of what love is growing up, and then when this man came into your life and gave you love in a more proper way, you didn't know how to handle that. So you needed somebody to kind of let you know, hey, that's the right way, or that's more of the right way, because nobody's perfect, but you were getting loved the way you should be loved, and that's a wonderful thing. I'm glad that you found that.
Yeah, and I did. And in the beginning, I was rejecting it because it felt weird and it felt like I don't deserve this. And I still, honestly, even these days, I still, and I hate to admit this, but maybe it'll help someone out there that's gone through similar, but there's days when everything could be going peachy keen and wonderful, and it's like the best day ever. But because I feel so uncomfortable in it, because when I was young, every day was chaos, then, I'll pick a miniature fight or argument over something that doesn't even matter, because it feels so uncomfortable to be happy or whatnot. And he's a very understanding individual. We have never had any kind of dysfunctional, abuse or issues, that sort of thing. He's done everything. He's gone with me to therapy to understand, he's held my hand through all of this. He used to hear the arguments and stuff in the background, when I would call him, because I didn't want to be alone sometimes when my parents were having it out, and so he's walked with me every step of the way with this, but, there's times when I feel like I'm undeserving of, lotion that smells really pretty, because of the way I was raised. And so, it sounds like, I don't know, maybe petty or dumb things to some people, but, everyone is worth every bit of what you can get and what you're offered that's healthy and wonderful. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes other people to help you to realize that, because you've heard the wrong things from the wrong people for too long.
Trish, I'm sure some people can relate, including myself. And my mother, she was on her fourth marriage, and her fourth marriage, the way that she kept that one together for so long, and she's been married probably almost 20 years now with the fourth. She said 15-minute divorces whenever they get on each other's nerves. And I know at this particular time, a lot of couples are together more often than they used to be. It used to be, you'd have the husband go off in one direction, the wife or the partner, go off in the other direction, and then they'd meet together for a couple hours in the evening. Well, now with the pandemic and the quarantining, people are stuck together more often. So I think that they're getting more fights because they're not used to being around each other. But some of the fights are for no reason.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like, what are you doing? You're standing over there and you're breathing. How dare you? And it's fine, to have little, arguments or frustrations. It's normal because, everyone's, routine and whatnot has just, it's like someone was playing Scrabble and the whole board was filled and it was pretty. And then somebody came over and kicked the bottom of the table and everything just went flying everywhere. And they're like, okay, let's reorganize. And it's just madness and chaos. But, if you start to feel like you are just, in 2/10 of a situation, it's okay to go outside and take a walk. It's okay. I'll admit there's times when I come out and I just sit in my car and listen to music, and just kind of think of it as a really tiny apartment. If you need time for yourself, ultimately, you got to take care of yourself in all of this too, even though more people are needing you than they did before all of this chaos,
Yeah, just break out and go in the next room for a couple of seconds. Breathe.
Yeah. And those that are in a studio apartment, my heart goes out to you because you only really have a bathroom, but, do what you got to do, But, and you were mentioning, everybody's in quarantine. Things are getting more intense. I don't know how many individuals realize this, but, domestic violence is on the rise, and, I've read some really horrible, news articles warning that that's actually being used as a weapon, possibly by partners. Hey, if you leave the house, you're not coming back. I'm not going to have you back. And if you get COVID, so be it. You're on your own, kind of, using that as a weapon or a threatening measure. And then, of course, child abuse is on the rise as well, because, we're all in tight quarters and whatnot, and it's really important to take a step back, go take a walk. But unfortunately, those that were abusive before are mega abusive now. And so it's really important to reach out, when you feel like you might be in need of that. So.
You really opened my eyes to something that people, if you go off to the grocery store, who knows what you're bringing back? I mean, I know, look, for me, I think this is all getting really blown out of proportion. I think it's a really bad cold, a bad flu. Thankfully, I'm young, I'm strong. People with a lower, immune systems need to worry and take precautions. But by the same token, I'm not giving as many hugs as I used to. I haven't shaken hands in years because I meet so many people. Not that I'm afraid of their germs, but you just never know. So I've been fist bumping, for years now. But I love hugs. I love them. But I guess I am cautious in this time. But I didn't realize that. You're right. That it could be used as a weapon. When people go off to the grocery store, they come back. Oh no, you're not coming back in my house. I just went to the grocery store. I had to pick up some essentials. But have you heard such things? I mean, is this something firsthand or secondhand that you've heard about, Trish?
No, and I've not heard of cases locally that have happened. It's news articles and things like that. I try and follow some, certain news feeds and things of that nature, to where I'm just kind of aware of, things that could potentially happen, because it's happened, in other states. There's been things that have been reported and whatnot. So to just kind of, so if we get a call, it's not that, like at the shelter, it's not, oh my gosh, people are actually doing this. And, you don't want to have that shocked sound in your voice or something when, someone calls, they're in dire straits, they're needing help. But, what was domestic violence before COVID now has an added, weapon to it, an added, a new situation that, there's some people that could be going to and through and whatnot. And so it's just kind of being, vastly aware of everything that could possibly happen, that someone may need to call about, or something of that nature. So, no, I've not heard of anything locally, and there have been people that are in need. And it's just really important to know that, you can reach out. It's important to make that phone call if you, if you feel like you're in danger, if you're worried about, what tomorrow holds for you, if you're uncomfortable, it's important to make that call. And honestly, I should know the phone number off the top of my head, but I don't call the hotline, and so I don't have it memorized. So walking away from this, I am going to make sure I program myself to not only remember the phone number for the shelter, but also...
Which shelter would that be?
The Safe Place.
Okay, I have the number 501-354-1884.
Perfect. Thank you. And if you're not in that area, or sometimes, if you are living in one area and you need to get away from your abuser, it's best to go further away. So it may not be that you go to the shelter in your area, but you can always call the Safe Place and let them know, hey, this is my situation, and there's resources there that we can share as far as phone numbers for other facilities and whatnot. And then if you're hearing something or seeing something that makes you worry that there's a child in danger or being abused, it's important to make that phone call to the hotline as well for that. And again, that's a number that I need to memorize. Things have just been hectic. I need to memorize these numbers, maybe write it on a piece of paper and keep it on the back of my phone. But, make that call as well,
Are you still going off to work every day at the Safe Place, or is this, are you able to do stuff from home? How is that working out for you?
Well, I work one 24-hour shift at the Safe Place one day a week. But the rest of my time is filled with, we have our son, he's 12 and he has special needs, but he's also trying to finish his school year up, which has gone online. So we're trying to assist him with that. And then because he does have, he is living with autism and ADHD, he does have a therapist and a psychiatrist. So, he has a lot of appointments that have gone from, face-to-face visits to phone calls. as well as, God bless the teachers that we have, because they are doing FaceTime, Zoom meetings with the kiddos, and whatnot. So there's dealing with that. And then I've been trying to help my husband with what he's needing in order to be able to record his classes, to get those online for his students. I've been working with, the individuals that I've been assigned with CASA to make sure they're cared for, which, it can be complex things. It could be simple things. These individuals, they have children and they've gone to Walmart in their area and they can't find, baby food or diapers or something like that. Then, I've been trying to help by going to different places. If I can find it, I will go ding dong ditch and leave this at your door and spray it down with Lysol so that you have it, because, as a community, we need to be helping one another. And so I've been working on that, and then trying to make sure that I'm logging everything that I'm doing with CASA, and everything, to make sure my supervisor's aware of what's going on with things. So it's the little things here and there adding up to a whole lot. And so even though I only work one day at the shelter, there's just a plethora of other things that I've been, working with and trying to make sure I get done. And then also, I just want to give a shout out to all the teachers and the school personnel and everything else like that. I know you guys they're doing everything that they can. And as frustrating as it is to have one more appointment to where I'm like, okay, son, you've got this appointment through Zoom, with your reading teacher. You know what? The teachers were on the front line. They were the ones that saw how children were doing when they would come to school. If they were being abused at home, they were able to see marks on these kids, or are they actually eating lunch? Are they, snarfing down lunch and then needing more lunch because that's the only time they get to eat? And they don't have that ability to lay eyes on them anymore face to face, but they've stepped up, and the school system stepped up, so that even through a Zoom meeting, they can just know, hey, this kid's okay,
So right, Trish, give it up to the teachers. And I was sneaking on your Facebook, and I did notice April 13th, there was a post of you video recording your husband while he was teaching. I thought that was cute as can be. So he's doing his part, making sure that people have knowledge in their heads. And that's why we're going to fight this thing with knowledge and the scientists that are working on it. I'm sure there's some people that are working around the clock trying to bat this thing down, and we'll get back to normalcy as soon as possible. I hear May 1st. I mean, and that sounds about right, because Wuhan, China went into quarantine January 23rd, and I think last week they went back to work. So that's about 3 months. And then May 1st, I think we went into quarantine about March 26th. And then May 1st sounds about right for us to kind of meander on out. Maybe, stay cautious and stay vigilant, but get back to work. And from what I understand, Arkansas in particular didn't even close down. It was, people on NPR were talking, and one in particular, I remember I was listening to a lady who runs a steel plant in Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh Steelers, get it? Okay. She does business all over the country, and she said she's had to change her ways a little bit, but Arkansas, business as usual. I'm very proud of our state.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't closed down as much as some other states. I mean, there's the inconvenience of, everything kind of being altered, stores being open certain hours and whatnot, but no, I think we've been pretty good. We still have a lot going and whatnot. We haven't had to do it as hardcore as other states, but hopefully this will all end soon, and we can get past it and get back to normalcy, which unfortunately at that point, I think it won't be normalcy anymore, because this is the new normal, but we'll get there.
Fist bumps and finger guns. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Finger guns.
Finger guns and jazz hands. There you go.
I'm doing okay, jazz hands.
Right. Yeah.
I like that a lot. All right. Well, that brings us right to now. And how do people get a hold of you? And what kind of things are you open to talking about with folks? Do they contact you directly if they have problems, or they go through the Arkansas CASA, or if they're in Morrilton, they go to the safe place? How do you want people to connect with you?
Well, it's not important that they connect with me personally. If they want to become a CASA, if they're interested in that, Crystal Dendy, She helps to recruit for CASA. You can always Google it. I should know the web address. Unfortunately, I'm horrible at remembering things, and I'm talking to you on my cell phone, so I can't, seem ultra clever and go digging. But CASA Arkansas, and there's, phone numbers and whatnot on there that you can reach through, and it'll give you a little bit more information as well. Go on Facebook and type in, CASA, just, start garnering information and whatnot. And now they're doing classes online where you can view it, it's like I guess webcam style, like a lot of things now, so that we can still get individuals in place to help those kids that are in need. So that way, and then, if you're in need and you feel like you are not in a safe place, or, even if you need a phone number, because unfortunately right now you're facing homelessness or whatnot, if you call the safe place, or you can call, really any shelter in Arkansas, they all have numbers they can offer you and information. And it's just important to reach out when you feel like when you don't know where to go, figuratively speaking, ask someone for directions, reach out, and sometimes the first phone call isn't the one that'll get you where you need to go, but, keep hacking at it, I hate using myself as an example. I don't have like that huge ego or whatnot, really to do that, to, share my testament, quote unquote, or testimony, excuse me. But, I am where I am, whereas, I could be on a very different path, and so don't give up, if you don't want to be on, a dismal path, we're all worthy of sunlight. If you want to see the light at the end of the tunnel, keep hacking at it. You'll get there. You just got to, keep putting in that effort, even when it's not the easiest thing. And the light at the end of the tunnel is not the front of a train all the time. Just keep going. You'll get there.
I know people listen to this from all over the world, but a lot of my listeners are here in Arkansas. And if you do have some issues, some needs, the number for Arkansas State CASA Association is 501-410-1952. So
thank you.
Oh, no worries. The Google is strong with me.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Well, I guess we could talk about your religious path just a little bit as we close this out. St. Joseph Catholic Church, is that where you're going? Is that the spot?
Yes. And of course, unfortunately, because of COVID, they've had to close down for a time. But our family, we've been going there for the last 12 years. My husband and I were helping to teach faith formation for fourth grade, which, for those that maybe, attend a Baptist church, it would be the equivalent of kind of like Sunday school. And we were teaching that. And then I'm also a Eucharistic minister for St. Joseph. And then I was also a minister for the sick, for Eucharistic ministry. And I would go and visit St. Andrews to bring communion to, individuals that might need it there. But all of this has thrown everything, kind of into chaos. And so, when I thought, I've got a lot of, things that have kind of had to, go to the side for a minute and take a break, I thought, okay, well, that's going to open up a lot of time. But it seems like other things needed more time, and they've kind of fallen into place and kind of, filled in that time, which is great. They take priority when they need to. But yeah, we are Catholic. We do go to, St. Joseph and try to help out there and whatnot. So, and I love that church, and, Father Tony and Raj and Father Jeff, they've been awesome to do a live streaming service. And so that's kind of how we've been keeping up to date and keeping ourselves a community, not only, and I believe in community, not only church-wide, but, worldwide,
Yeah, throughout the gambit of seeking religious and spiritualism and where my place is in the world. The fellowship is definitely what I enjoy the most. Finding people that I can chit chat with and good people for that matter, just trying to live their lives right. So thank you very much for that. I'll put all this in the show notes. Just thank you so much, Trish, for talking to me. I know this has been a long time coming, and I've enjoyed this so much, and I hope that we do keep in touch from time to time. And I look forward to meeting you in person and chit chatting a little bit more.
Yes,
I know
would be awesome.
We're so close and yet so far. And I'm so glad that you have a good family life. It seems like it's real stable now. And even though that work life is hectic, but I think you've made it that way so you can keep yourself busy. Idle hands, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, very much so. I'm like, well, if I get too bored, then, I think a lot of people, they get stuck in their head. But if you're doing something productive and you keep your mind set on, positive things, that helps a great deal. So I know you've seen my Facebook. I post a lot of memes about crazy things, and yes, I'm a Tiger King fan. I can't believe someone recommended that I watch that, and it certainly wasn't what I expected, but the hilarity that comes from it. What else are we going to do if we're stuck inside all the time? Yay, Netflix! So.
What a surprise! I mean, I caught it myself, and I'm waiting with bated breath for that one last episode that's coming out real soon.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But the biggest thing, I just want to throw out there is that if you don't like where you're planted right now, you're not a tree. You can move. So.
Well, my goodness, I usually end this thing with last words for the people, and Patricia, I think that might have been the last words for the people. No, if you have something that you live by, that you words to live by, or just something that pops up into your head at this point, because that what you just said was very profound. But I'm going to give Patricia, Trish, Dequeant. Oh my goodness, I haven't said it in about an hour. Dequeant.
You're good. Dequeant, yeah.
Dequeant. All right, let's try this one more time. Patricia, Trish, Dequeant. Last words for the people.
If you feel like you're a tree and you don't like where you're planted, you can move. You're not a tree. And be the change in the world you wish to see. There you go.
Well, there you have it, party people. Trish Dequeant, such a cool lady. She had such a hard upbringing, and she took it, she twisted it, she turned it around, and now she's helping people herself. That's fantastic. That's what you do. Take that pain, you fix it. She had some help. She got some help from people going through therapy and the like. And she has a nice hubby that has helped her out as well. Find out what true love is. Dig it. It's a love story. It's a people helping people story. It's Trish Dequeant's story. I love it. Thank you. From Louisiana all the way to Conway, Arkansas. In a meandering roundabout way. Thank you so much for telling your story on the What Makes You Famous podcast. If you, my lovely loyal listener, would like to tell your story, I encourage you to give me a call at 501-470-6386 or email info@radiowhat.com. That's it for me. It's Keys Dan, radiowhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.
Follow Keys Dan on Facebook and Twitter. Click on the links at the top of keysdan.com. Follow Radio What on Facebook and Twitter. Click on the links at the top of radiowhat.com. The music you want is on.
If you like what you hear, follow What Makes You Famous social media. Use the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Follow on Facebook at What Makes You Famous. Follow on Instagram at What Makes You Famous. Follow on Twitter at Makes Famous. And follow on YouTube at Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Famous podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Famous podcast on Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, and almost anywhere you find podcasts. Tell your story on my podcast, What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time. You can support What Makes You Famous using the PayPal link, paypal.me/KeysDan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Famous podcast is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening.
Radio What? The music you want. With some words to live by.
Save for retirement, starting with your first paycheck.
A public service message from RadioWhat.com. The music you want.